Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at sustainable aviation fuels.
SAFs,
yeah. And I think a lot of people listening probably know that this is kind of the answer to the big problem with aviation emissions.
supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. But what's so fascinating about the research we're diving into today is that it kind of shows the opposite is happening.
Yeah.
So this is a paper from 2021 by Dodd and Yengen.
Mm-hmm.
It was published in Transportation Research Part D.
Yep.
And they interviewed 36 people.
Yeah.
All across airlines, biofuel companies, policymakers.
Big players.
Yeah, big players in the industry.
Yeah.
And what they found is fascinating.
Yeah, it's like everyone agrees this is super important. Like, we need SAFs
Right.
to address this problem.
Mm-mm.
But no one wants to take that first step.
It's a standoff.
It is. It's a total standoff. The airlines are saying, well, the biofuel companies need to make it cheaper.
Right.
The biofuel companies are saying, well, the airlines need to sign these long-term agreements.
Right.
And everyone's kind of looking at the government like, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly. Like waiting for some kind of magic policy to come in and fix it all.
Magic wand, yeah.
And, it's easy to think of this as, oh, this is just an industry problem. Let them figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, is that this deadlock, it affects everyone, even if you fly once a year.
Right.
Because every single passenger mile generates a huge amount of CO2.
And that's not even considering like the contrail effects and all these other atmospheric impacts.
Exactly.
And the scariest part is that these emissions, they're projected to double by 2050.
Double.
Double.
So that's why everyone's so excited about SAFs, because they're bio-based jet fuel that can reduce those emissions.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a catch.
Always a catch.
Yeah.
They're 2 to 7 times more expensive than traditional jet fuel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And another issue is that some of the most promising SAF technologies aren't quite ready for prime time yet.
Okay, so we have this urgent need for SAFs.
Right.
But we have all these roadblocks.
Yeah.
So let's kind of break down this blame game.
Yeah.
Because I think it reveals why things are moving so slowly.
Yeah.
First up, what are the airlines saying about all this?
So the airlines are basically saying, hey, look, we're happy to use SAFs if there's enough demand, if passengers are demanding it and are willing to pay a little bit more, then we'll use it.
So it's kind of like they're putting it on us.
They're calling it market pull.
Market pull.
Like, if the market demands it, then they'll provide it.
But I'm guessing some airlines are kind of doing stuff right.
Yeah, a few are investing in SAF development and stuff.
Okay.
But a lot of them are kind of sitting back and waiting for either the technology to get better or the price to drop.
They're waiting for a miracle.
Yeah, they are. And they're also kind of frustrated with governments.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're saying that governments aren't doing enough to kind of incentivize SAFs or to, regulate fossil fuels.
So they're kind of saying like, hey, we want to do this, but we need some help here.
Right, exactly. Like, we're getting all this pressure to go green, but we need a little bit of a nudge.
Interesting. Okay, so the airlines are basically saying passengers need to demand it. Governments need to help.
Yeah.
What about the biofuel companies?
The biofuel companies are saying, hey, we're working on the technology side. We're pushing this technology forward.
Okay.
They're calling it technology push.
Okay.
But they're saying that scaling up production is really expensive and risky.
Okay.
And they're kind of pointing the finger back at the airlines.
Oh, how so?
They're saying that the airlines aren't committing to these long-term agreements.
These like purchase agreements.
Yeah, like these purchase agreements.
Okay.
So basically it's like they need those agreements to get funding.
Right.
And to kind of ramp up production. But the airlines aren't willing to sign them until they know that SAFs will be affordable. And it's just this...
Such a chicken and egg.
It's a total chicken and egg situation.
Yeah, and to make it even more complicated, I was reading that there's even some finger pointing within the biofuel world.
Yeah, unfortunately, some biofuel companies are being accused of overhyping what they can do.
Oh, wow.
And overpromising on, how quickly they can scale up.
Right.
So that makes investors hesitant, and it just adds to the tension.
Oh, man. Okay, so we've got airlines blaming biofuel companies blaming airlines, and everybody wants the government to step in.
Yep.
So where do policymakers stand in all of this?
They're stuck in the middle.
Of course they are.
Right. They've got pressure from both sides, and on top of that, they have to balance, the environmental concerns with the economic realities of the industry.
Right, because this is a struggling industry.
It is, yeah.
So nobody wants to be the first mover here.
No,
it's a mess.
Yeah.
But what I thought was so interesting in this research was this concept of free riding across sectors.
Yes.
What do they mean by that?
So it's not just like individuals being selfish, right?
Right.
It's about entire industries passing the buck and saying, well, someone else is going to solve this problem.
Right.
So each sector is waiting for someone else to kind of take the lead.
Take the risk.
Yeah, take the risk, put in the money.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of hoping that someone else will step up and solve the problem for them.
Like a giant game of hot potato.
Exactly.
But nobody wants to hold the potato.
Nobody wants that potato.
And meanwhile, the planet's getting warmer.
That's right.
So what can we do? Who can break the cycle? Is there any hope?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the answer might surprise you because there's one really crucial player that's missing from this whole equation.
Who's that?
The consumer. The everyday passenger.
Wait, so you're saying the future of sustainable aviation rests on my shoulders?
Well, maybe more than you think, because what's missing from this research and from the industry conversation as a whole is the power of consumer demand. If enough passengers started demanding SAFs and were willing to pay a little extra for them, it could totally change the game.
So instead of waiting for the governments or corporations to fix it, the passengers could be the ones to make it happen.
Exactly. Think about it. Biofuel companies could launch these huge campaigns to raise awareness about SAFs, and they could lobby for policies that support SAFs.
Okay.
Airlines might actually be forced to act if their customers start choosing greener options or even boycotting the ones who are lagging behind.
Right.
And policymakers are way more likely to support an industry that has strong public backing.
It's like a domino effect.
It is.
So the future of sustainable aviation isn't just about some fancy new technology or what happens in a corporate boardroom.
Right.
It's about us.
Yeah.
It's about collective action.
It is.
And our choices as consumers.
That's right.
This is kind of empowering.
It is. It's exciting.
So we've explored this blame game. We've unpacked this idea of free riding across sectors. We've looked at what the different players are saying.
Yeah.
But where do we go from here? What are the big takeaways?
That's a great question, and one we'll tackle right after this.
Okay. I'll admit I'm feeling a little inspired, but I'm also a bit skeptical. Let's be realistic. Most people book flights based on price. Are we really expecting them to suddenly become eco-warriors and demand SAFs? I mean, wouldn't that make flying even more expensive?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But I think we shouldn't underestimate the power of public pressure.
Okay.
We've seen shifts in other industries, like organic food or fair trade coffee, where consumers really do care about the impact of their choices.
Right.
And they're willing to vote with their wallets, even if it means paying a bit more.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But those are everyday products?
Right.
Not a luxury like air travel.
Okay.
Is there really a market for green flights?
I think so. I think attitudes towards flying are definitely changing, especially among younger generations.
Okay.
They're way more aware of their carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And, they're choosing to fly less or offset their emissions.
Okay.
And there's this whole trend of flight shaming.
Oh, yeah.
Where people are becoming more conscious of the environmental impact of their travel.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think there's a real opportunity here.
For a greener way to fly.
Yeah. A demand that's just waiting to be tapped into.
Okay, so this is where biofuel companies could really kind of step up.
Exactly. They could leverage this growing eco-consciousness and position SAFs as the solution.
Okay.
Think like targeted marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
Highlighting the benefits of sustainable aviation. Partnerships with travel agencies offering green travel packages.
Okay.
Even collaborations with influencers who promote sustainable lifestyles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So Instagram feeds full of stunning travel photos.
Yes.
All powered by SAFs.
Exactly.
It's about making sustainable aviation aspirational.
Yes, aspirational, not just responsible.
I love that.
Yeah, and if they can build that narrative, they can create this huge demand that airlines just can't ignore.
Okay, I'm starting to buy into this consumer-driven change idea.
Good.
But what about the airlines and the policymakers?
Right.
The other two players in this tug of war.
Yeah.
How do they fit into this new model?
Well, for airlines, this shift in consumer demand could be a game changer.
Okay.
Imagine passengers actively choosing airlines that prioritize SAFs, even if it means paying a little bit more.
Yeah, that would light a fire.
It would totally light a fire under them.
Yeah.
And it would force them to compete on sustainability.
Right.
To invest in SAFs not as like a PR stunt, but as a core business strategy.
And what about policymakers?
Yeah.
They've been hesitant so far.
They have, but imagine the pressure they would face if a big chunk of the population started demanding policies that support sustainable aviation. Suddenly they'd have this mandate to act.
Could actually do something.
Get to implement carbon taxes, to give incentives for SAF production, to create a level playing field that actually favors the greener options.
So it's like a domino effect?
It is.
Consumer demand puts pressure on airlines.
Yep.
Airlines put pressure on policymakers.
That's right.
And everyone starts moving in the same direction.
Exactly.
So this brings us to the second strategy that Dodd and Yang talk about, which is this simultaneous action agreement.
It's kind of a mouthful.
It is. It's like a synchronized dance move or something.
It is. In a way, it's about all the players in this ecosystem agreeing to take action at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, to move forward together instead of waiting for someone else to make the first move.
That sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
But how do you get everyone to agree to that?
Well, it's not easy.
Yeah.
The research highlights 3 key barriers.
Okay.
First, as we talked about, is this free riding mentality.
Right. Everyone's got to take a bite of the hot potato.
Everyone's got to take a bite.
Yeah.
The second barrier is overcoming opposition.
Oh, yeah.
There will always be people who resist change.
The naysayers.
The naysayers, right, who are invested in the status quo.
Right.
Yeah, who benefit from the current system.
That's always a tough battle.
It is.
Yeah.
But the power of collective action, you know, when everyone's pulling in the same direction, can be really persuasive.
Okay.
And then the third barrier, and maybe the most challenging, is actually getting everyone willing to lead on the same page.
So even if you've got a group of well-intentioned people, getting them to agree can be tricky.
It can be. It requires a shared vision, clearly defined goals, and a real willingness to compromise.
So lots of late nights and strong coffee.
Probably. But the potential payoff is huge.
Yeah.
Imagine the entire aviation industry united behind the goal of sustainable flight.
That's pretty powerful.
It is.
Okay, so just to recap, we've got 2 potential pathways here. One that relies on consumer demand to drive change from the bottom up.
Right.
And the other that's more of a top-down approach, this simultaneous action agreement.
Yeah.
But which one is the right approach?
Well, that's the cool thing about this research.
Yeah.
They're not saying it has to be one or the other.
So we can have both.
We can have both.
Okay.
Imagine biofuel companies rallying consumers, airlines, feeling the heat of competition.
Yeah.
And policymakers being pushed to create policies that actually support sustainable aviation.
Right.
All those forces working together
Yeah.
could create unstoppable momentum.
So it's not about choosing one strategy.
Right.
It's about using all the tools we have
Yeah.
to create a real shift.
Exactly.
It's about changing the whole game.
It is, and that's what makes this so exciting.
I'm with you on that. So we've explored the blame game. We've unpacked this idea of free riding across sectors.
Yeah.
And we've looked at 2 strategies for breaking the deadlock.
Yeah.
But where do we go from here? Right.
What are the key takeaways?
That's a great question, and one we'll tackle right after this.
Okay, so we've laid out all the challenges.
Yeah.
Explored some solutions. But now I'm curious about the big picture.
Yeah.
Where does all this research leave us? What are the key takeaways?
I think the big takeaway is that complex problems like this need systemic solutions.
Right.
We can't just focus on the technology or expect the government to swoop in and fix everything.
Right.
It takes a real shift in mindset, like a recognition that everyone has a role to play.
Yeah, we need to ditch that blame game.
Totally.
And embrace that collective action.
Yes, and we need to be open to solutions coming from unexpected places.
Yeah, like the consumers.
Exactly.
We don't often think of them as being the drivers of change.
Right. They're often overlooked, but they have a lot of power.
It's that whole be the change you want to see.
I love that.
So what can our listeners do, like, right now to make a difference?
So first of all, stay informed.
Research the airlines you're flying with. Find out their policies on SAFs.
Okay.
Support the ones that are taking a leadership role.
So, like, vote with your dollars.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
When you book a flight, ask about SAF options, even if they're not available yet.
Okay.
Let them know you're interested.
Show that demand.
Yes, show that demand.
That market pull.
Exactly. And remember, your choices as a consumer have this ripple effect.
Yeah.
You know, when you choose to support sustainable options, you're sending a signal to the market, to the airlines, to the biofuel companies, to everyone. And that signal, amplified across millions of passengers, could really create change.
So it's about more than just, your individual flight.
It is. It's about shifting the entire industry
towards a more sustainable future.
Exactly. And that is a future worth fighting for.
Could agree more so. To wrap things up.
Yeah.
The future of sustainable aviation, it's not just about technology. It's not just about corporate responsibility. It's about all of us.
It is.
It's about making conscious choices.
Yeah.
That support a greener way to fly.
That's right. And remember, you have the power to make that change.
The power is in your hands.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into sustainable aviation.
Until next time, keep asking those tough questions.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.